So I am an avid user of the brain dead bird app known as Twitter. And last night, while I was looking at Twitter, I found a tweet that intrigued me. And that was this from @Monotheon. And it was he ranked every Nintendo game console. So I quote retweeted it and I said, "Let's do a yoink and twist, baby. Let's go." So today, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to rank every single Nintendo console that has ever been released ever. I would like to say, before we start, that whatever conclusion I come to is 100% fact and actually not up for debate whatsoever. So, whatever conclusion I come to here is actually the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Starting off with just the Game Boy. Just the original Game Boy. I've been very open about how I feel about streaming Game Boy games. I think streaming Game Boy games is cringe because they're monochromatic. But that being said, I think you gotta give respect where respect is due. Game Boy being the OG, right? So you gotta give respect where respect is due with the Game Boy Advance being the first handheld console. A lot of technological limitations at the time. However, I do think it's mid. I don't think it's that great. Next up is the NES. Now, I would say the NES is not mid. To be fair, I got the NES reboot thingy. This thingy. I own one of these. And I think there's a lot of good things to be said about NES games. Mario Bros, Zelda, but is it S tier? That's the question. Like, it's not. I think it's definitely it at least hits a solid B tier. So I think that's where we'll leave it for now. 3DS, I think, okay, 3DS has backwards compatibility with the DS. I think all in all, I think the 3D aspect was more gimmicky than anything, and it served no greater function to the Nintendo machine. Like, don't get me wrong, the Wii U is dog shit. Absolutely dog shit. But in a lot of ways, I think the Wii U paved the way for the Switch. The 3DS had a very gimmicky 3D system, and it wasn't even compatible with all the games. It's not a lot, and when they did work, it was actually super, like, mid. Yeah, most people never used the 3D setting, I don't think. The 3D was super gimmicky. They just wanted another 3D, or another DS. So I think it's D tier. I think they really could have. The only thing you really get out of it is the 3D models. I think 3D models were big, but I think they could have made another DS that supported 3D models. The Nintendo 64. No question. I am not gonna let anybody doubt that the Nintendo 64 is anything less than an S tier console. What is a console if not the games released on it? I think a large part of the console is the games that are released on it. The N64, Mario 64, Pokemon Snap, Mario Party 2, First Smash Bros. Off the top of my head, that's Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. I mean, oh my god, Nintendo put their whole left foot into the N64. What wasn't released on the N64 at some point, dude? They literally put everything they had into the N64. It is literally an S tier console. The DS, what do I think about the DS? I think the touchscreen was cool, but not a lot of games. I don't think they were ready for it. I think I watched a video at some point about like the true story of the DS, and like not a lot of games were ready for the touchscreen, which is kind of weird, but I think towards the end they understood it. What else did the DS have? The DS had good games, and it was backwards compatible with the Game Boy Advance. I think the DS is A tier. The Nintendo Switch, it's S tier. No question. The Nintendo Switch is S tier. Like, come on. The only bad thing I could think of for the Nintendo Switch is the Joy-Con drift. I think the Joy-Con drift is a really big problem that they had a chance to fix with the OLED Switch, and they didn't. But oh my god, other than that, the Switch is amazing. The drift is really bad. Like, the Joy-Con drift is terrible. But other than that, it's pretty good. I love the Switch. The SNES, I think it's better than the I think it's better than the NES. I don't think it's near the DS, you know? That being said, I think it's better than the NES. This thing, F tier. Terrible. Bad. Get it out of here. I don't even remember what this thing was called. It was like VR in the 90s and it sucked. This is what it looked like. It was all red. It is bad. It is a bad console. The Wii, there's no question in my mind that the Wii was revolutionary. The real question is, but was the Wii as good as the Switch or the N64, or is it more in the tier of DS where it was good? I think it's above DS. I think the Wii goes above DS, but I don't think it touches S tier. The GameCube, I think the GameCube is probably S tier. I think GameCube's S tier. I think it's untouched, unmatched. Not really, but I think it's a GOAT. I think it's one of the GOATs. And you get the little handle thing. The only problem I had with the GameCube was losing memory cards. But there's great games on the GameCube. The GameCube's got great games. Is fun to play. I still use GameCube controllers to this day. The Game Boy Advance, I think it's C tier. That's a lie. I think it's middle of B tier. I don't know. It was just a good console. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my Game Boy Advance. I fucking hate Fire Red though. Fire Red, Leaf Green, fucking shit games. Hate them. The Game Boy Color, I think, is high C tier. I don't think there's much. There's no difference between the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, other than the fact that the Game Boy Color plays in color. Yeah, it's like they take your monochromatic ass and give it color. It's not great. And then finally, the Wii U. I personally think the Wii U is D tier. I don't think the Wii U is as bad as the Virtual Boy. I don't think anything will literally ever touch how bad the Virtual Boy is. What was one thing I said when we started the tier list and we were rating the 3DS? What was the one thing I said about the Wii U? The Wii U paved the way for the Switch. I think a lot of the gamepad implementation, from what I remember, was good. I think Nintendo did a much better job of implementing the gamepad into the Wii U gameplay than they did implementing the touchscreen into early DS gameplay. This is the final ranking. After going through and ranking every single Nintendo game system, here's the conclusion I came to. In dead last, it's not close, the Virtual Boy. Bad. Terrible. Should have never happened. Moving up to D tier, we have the Wii U and then the 3DS. In C tier, we have the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. B tier has the NES, the SNES, and then the Game Boy Advance. I do think SNES is a major improvement on NES. And Game Boy Advance, I think, is just better. I think Game Boy Advance is just better. In A tier, we have the Wii, which might be a little controversial. Wii A tier might be a little controversial. And then on top of that, the DS, which, if not more controversial, is close. I think ranking the DS above the Wii is probably controversial, but that's okay. And then the S tier. The GOATs. We've got the GameCube, the N64, and then the Nintendo Switch. I think the Nintendo Switch is the best console Nintendo's ever made. Might be a little bit of a recency bias, but I think we've got plenty of reason to believe that it is. So that's it. That is my official Nintendo console ratings. Don't like it? Sound off in the comments. But I'll be honest, I don't care.